Well, good day and welcome to you. It is July the 12th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs, and I also want to point out, if you want to know more about this information, want to see if there's anything to it or not, I have provided links to websites that give you wonderful background information about what we talk about in the description portion of each and every one of these videos. So hopefully you'll look into it for yourself and take the time to do that. I also want to take the time to thank Thomas Lynch, Olivier Christophe, Johnny Gregory, Cynthia Jaworski, and Nick the Younger for taking the time out of their day to comment and even ask a question in the case of Nick Younger. So let's get on into it. Nick Younger wrote and asked, "Been listening to your videos for a while. I'm a big fan." Hey, Mom, thank you so much for that. You're very kind. And I got a question, Mom. How long have you been going by the name Nick Younger? I'm kidding. No, I didn't realize I had a fan. But anyway, thank you very much. You're very kind for that. I know you're talking about the information, Nick, not about me per se, but it doesn't mean I can't be tongue-in-cheek about it. All right. Where did that term come from anyway, tongue-in-cheek? I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I digress. It says, I have a lot of the books you talk about. I try to understand the writings of Blavatsky. Bailey's are a little easier, that is for sure. Not much, though. But Cremes are definitely my pay grade. And I'm right with you there, sir. That's so funny, the way you put it. Anyways, I'm sorry to laugh. Anyways, and he actually wrote anyways, and I also said anyways. It's kind of funny. Bailey, the Tibetan, has said that these masters would be strategically placed all throughout the world. Do you think the World Economic Forum has a master hanging around there? I'd like to actually talk and see how I can play my part. So, well, thank you for that. And real quick, before I try to answer your question, the last sentence, I'd like to actually talk and see how I can play my part. I've been coming across this more and more as I put these videos up over the months and years that I've been doing it. If you want to, and this isn't just for you, Nick, because you're already reading this stuff, but if you're someone who wants to do something about this, let's say you're starting to think that there might be something to this, I do think the best thing you can do is just what Nick does. Start reading. Start educating yourself better about this information. That's the first step. 2, start talking about it. And you don't have to talk about this information when you know everything about it. You can start talking about it at any point up until that point. But, the more you know about it, the better, obviously. But to talk about it to people. Express your concern about the need for peace, the need to help solve the environmental problem with the people in your life. You don't have to go on YouTube like I do, but you can talk about it with people in your life. There's nothing wrong with that. You might get blowback from some people. You might not. You might get people who you think that wouldn't be interested and even take the time to even listen to what you have to say, might start listening to you. You never know, right? You really don't know. And then, I would say kind of prepare yourself for when you do start to see Maitreya on TV and recognize him as that might be Maitreya on TV, to listen to him and understand that he is speaking to humanity to wake humanity up to the need that we have to do something about the problems that we're facing. And it starts with the principle of sharing. That's why I always talk about how important the principle of sharing is. There's nothing else that can transpire about this information, whether it's the need, peace in the world, us traveling to the stars, justice for all. Nothing can happen, even saving the environment. Nothing can happen until we start the principle of sharing. The major problem in the world today is there's a lack of love, hands down. But you can't just talk about love. You have to do something about it, right? And humanity must learn to share the resources that are available, that should be available for everyone, really, is what it amounts to. But let's get on to your question. But thank you very much for that. Let's see. Where is it? Do you think the World Economic Forum has a master hanging around there? I don't think so. Now, obviously, I don't have the inside track as somebody like Benjamin Creme would have, but my guess would be no. And the reason why is because these masters are not playing that role yet, speaking directly even to the world leaders of the world today in that way. Now, that's not to say that there isn't very advanced disciples within the World Economic Forum trying to bring awareness to the others of the need for sharing and those kind of things. But I would say probably not. And then maybe those people are working with the masters, and so the masters are working indirectly through them, maybe. But what I think he was talking about being strategically placed around the world is what we talk about sometimes in these videos, when these masters decided that they had to come back into the world after 100,000 years of being away, apart from humanity in a way, being away from the public eye in the way that they were, not teaching humanity directly, however you want to phrase it. The process has been long and arduous, and it's been, throughout the majority of the process of them coming back into humanity isn't even written down, because we didn't start writing things down, but 3 or 4 or 5,000 years ago? And it's been over 100,000 years that they've been working on this. But they knew at some point they would have to come back. And one of the things that Benjamin Creme said that I thought was quite extraordinary when he was talking about the Renaissance painters, that one of the jobs of one of these Renaissance painters, who's perhaps one of my favorite Renaissance painters, Rembrandt, von Rijn, the Dutch painter, painted all these self-portraits of himself. And on the average person will probably look and go, yeah, this guy's probably pretty narcissistic. He was not even that handsome of a guy, right? But he kept painting himself in different stages of his life. And Benjamin Creme said, not too long after he stopped coming to the United States, when he was talking about one of these artists, the artist and so forth, he said that Maitreya actually was overshadowing Rembrandt and painting his eyes into the paintings. And it was one very simple way through art for Maitreya to start to approach humanity. So that's how long it's been going on. But prior to Maitreya coming into London on July 19th, 1977, 5 masters entered certain major cities. And Ben always said it was not in any degree of importance, but this is in the way that they did it. The first one went into New York and has since been living in the outskirts of New York. They're all living in the outskirts of these cities, so they're not in these cities in that way. The next one is in London. The next one moved into Geneva, Darjeeling, and then Tokyo. And since then, those 5 have been in those cities. And then he said 2 more entered 2 other major cities. The next one went into Rome, and then the next one went into Moscow. And he always said that the only one he was allowed to talk about now and name specifically was the Master Jesus, who is in Rome, who will eventually be heading up the churches in the coming time. And then Maitreya entered London like he'd said he would in the Bible, like a thief in the night in an hour when you least expect it. He entered London and fulfilled the man-made prophecy of coming through the clouds by taking a plane and not just thinking himself there. So there are prophecies that were in the Bible that were very accurate because they were genuine prophets that were speaking it. Like one would be John. I think the Tibetan said that John was one of 2 actual prophets in the Bible. I want to say the other one was it Ezekiel? I can't remember the other one. I'm trying to find where he wrote about the other one. But anyway, the other ones just were kind of writing what they thought about the future. And even Jesus fulfilled some of the man-made prophecies that they had. Now, the main prophecy was that the Son of Man was coming back, and he did just that. But there were things that he also did in his life to help fulfill the man-made prophecy, like entering Jerusalem. Instead of riding on a horse, he rode on a donkey, those kind of things. So Maitreya kind of did the same thing by fulfilling the man-made prophecy of the Christ coming back through the clouds by flying in a plane and not just coming through the clouds and thinking himself that way. You know what I'm saying? Which would probably have freaked everybody out in London. But anyway, yes, just very simply. And like I always like to jokingly say, one of the questions I will ask Maitreya when I do see him is, are you an aisle guy or were you selfless enough to take that middle seat? Or are you a window seat kind of guy? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, it's one or the other, right? But anyway, I'm just kidding. But anyway, to get back to your question about the World Economic Forum, from what I understand, the World Economic Forum is really these economists and political leaders and world leaders get together and just kind of talk about how to keep it going the same way it's been going. Very little is talked about in terms of the problems of the world. They do take a few hours out of their busy schedule of doing whatever they're doing, and I'm saying that sarcastically, right? But to talk about hunger or unclean drinking water and what they can do, and then they go right back to talking about what they're talking. It's not. I don't think it really does much, But that's not to say that there isn't somebody in there that's very aware of these masters, working with them in that way. So, I know when I first started reading about the masters, I had this image that the highest evolved of all the disciples were the spiritual teachers like Jesus or the Buddha. Had thousands perhaps of students. So if you looked around the world and you saw somebody famous who had a lot of students and a lot of followers, then they must be a very advanced spiritual person, which doesn't mean that they're not. It's just, but one of the things that Benjamin Creme said is that there are more advanced disciples within the fields of politics and economics than the other ones, and you wouldn't even know it if you saw them in that way. One clear example throughout history was Willy Brandt, the former Chancellor of Germany, very advanced. Worked with Maitreya. He was actually asked by Maitreya personally it was one of the first things that Maitreya did when he entered London, is he went and visited, or I don't know who visited whom, but somebody visited somebody. And Maitreya asked him to assemble a panel of very divergent types of views about coming up with an economic blueprint about the principle of sharing that economists would understand. And it's the Brandt Report is what it's called. Quite extraordinary work. Like you said, way above my pay grade. I tried to read it, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it makes sense to somebody. But he was asked by it. But he was a very, very advanced disciple. So, but if you were to look at him and you'd see him, I mean, he wasn't wearing like this kind of what you would think of spiritual clothes would be. He had a suit and a tie, and was talking the talk and walking the walk kind of thing. There are other disciples who may be in that World Economic Forum that are advanced in their own way, don't know anything about these masters. So, but the main, I think, objective, from what I understand it, of the World Economic Forum and things like this, when they come together, and even the G7 summit and all that kind of stuff, is to keep the system together. That's their main objective. It's not about solving the problems of the world. It's only solving the problems of the world in reference to their own problems. You know what I mean? So keeping them in power is really what I think Benjamin Creme talked about. And the masters are advocating a totally different way of operating. But I personally, like I said, to get back to your question directly, I don't think the masters have a direct role like that yet. Not until after Maitreya starts to introduce them. But that's not going to happen until after the Day of Declaration. And that's the day when we as a humanity demand from our news media, Maitreya, the opportunity to speak to all of us at one time. And then he will declare himself as Maitreya. Of course, he'll talk about the problems of the world, how far we've fallen, what we need to do to get back to where we were, how spiritual we once were, to how far in the materialism of which we've fallen to today. He will give a vision of that fall so we can see it from his perspective. We'll feel the pain and the suffering of those who have nothing, literally nothing. We'll feel it in the heart just as he feels it in his heart every day, moment of every day, to where he, the future that he sees for humanity, if we just learn to share, right? We'll see that as what we need to do. We'll see it as Maitreya sees it. But his message will be given to us inwardly. He won't say anything. So if you're somebody from the United States, you'll hear it all in English in your head, if that's your mother tongue. If you're from, Mexico or Central or South America, and that was your, Spanish is your mother tongue, you'll hear it in Spanish and not in English. Even if you can speak English as a second language, you'll hear it in whatever language you're the most comfortable speaking and thinking and dreaming or whatever in, that's what you'll hear it in. Everybody above the age of 14 will hear this, have this experience. And then, of course, there'll be thousands upon thousands, maybe even millions upon millions of miraculous cures. And then the one thing that I think is just quite extraordinary is Maitreya himself has said it will be as if he embraces all of humanity and will feel his energy even physically. So quite extraordinary thing. But anywho, up until that point, these masters will not be working like that in that way. They probably have approached disciples in their area, in their cities, or in their regions or whatever, to inspire them to to be a part of the plan. So they have taken a huge step into our lives, but not quite as far as that. So people have commented from time to time on these videos, oh, so and so is a master, he's already on a TV, or they've even thought that Barack Obama was Maitreya or something, or Bill Gates is a master. They don't have that kind of role in humanity. They're more guides in that way. I'm not saying that Barack Obama isn't a disciple. I'm not saying that Bill Gates isn't a disciple in their own way. It doesn't mean that they necessarily know anything about these masters. I doubt that they do. But they might have a little bit of the plan in their subconscious about, and that's inspiring them to do what they do and whatever they're doing. That's a direct result of the inspiration of one of these masters, but they're not one of these masters yet. So Maitreya is the only master who is on TV at this time, speaking to humanity. He's not even claiming to be a master. He's not claiming to be a Maitreya. He's not claiming to be anything super special. He's just presenting himself as an ordinary person. Now, according to Benjamin Creme's master, it is having a tremendous effect on the consciousness of humanity by him just doing this. We might not see it like that, but it is. And one of the things that I would say is probably the biggest effect that he's having on humanity is it's bringing out in everyone who and what they are. And that's why we have such a divided world in which we're living in. It's the sword of cleavage predicted in the Bible. Jesus said, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword. It's a direct result of the Christ energy flowing out in tremendous potency into humanity. And for a time, it brings everything to the surface, all the corruption within each of us individually, but also the corruption within governments and so forth. Quite a painful period and painful time, but it's necessary. We must see who and what we really are, and not who and what we think we are. So, anyway, hopefully this helps. But I really do appreciate your question, Nick, and I always look forward to questions and comments and everything. But anyway, thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful day.
Remember
take care.
to take action.
We'll talk to you soon.
And help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.